Welcome back. We're going to quickly review our last two methods in this podcast. Right? And so both of these are in your notes. We're going to use completing the square. These two problems here are perfect problems for completing the square. Anytime my A is 1 and my B is an even number, completing the square is so easy. Right? I also don't mind it if my A is not 1, if the other number is evenly divisible by whatever A is. This one is a nice, easy one for completing the square. That would be my method of choice for this one, and neither of these is factorable. Right? So, for completing the square, our first step, actually our very first step, would be to, and I'll write the steps in here just to remind us, would be to, oops, now I got a box, divide all terms by A if A does not equal 1. Right? In this case, that's an unnecessary step because, well, A is equal to 1. So we skip that step. And we go to our next step, and that is move the constant term. It's of no use to us. Oops, what happened to my E? Looks like trum. Move constant term. All right, so we're going to add 3 to both sides, so that we have x squared plus 8x is equal to 3. Our third step, buzz, buzz, buzz. You're going to add b divided by 2 squared to both sides. You'll get sick of hearing me go buzz, 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 and you'll remember it. All right, so in this case, b is 8. Right, so we have x squared plus 8x plus, and I like to just write it in, b divided by 2 squared. Right? Just write it right into the equation. Equals 3 plus b divided by 2 squared. We'll squeeze that one in right there. All right, so we have x squared plus 8x. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. If this is a more complicated number to simplify, and it's not 8 divided by 2 and squaring 4, feel free to, just write out like this. So you can always write 4 squared. And then on the next step, x squared plus 8x plus 16. Right? You can do that as 2 steps if you'd like. Maybe I'll just leave it as 2 steps since I already did it. Right? Whatever you need to do. Right? On 8 divided by 4, you probably don't need to. Maybe it was something more complicated. You might want to write it down before you square it. Right, so we know this is going to be now 3 plus, and this would again have been 4 squared, which is 16. Right, I'm actually just going to write the 3 plus 16 over here, so I can just add them. So that's equal to 19. Now we factor is our next step. Remember that the factoring follows a pattern, so we don't have to do any work for it. Right, it's always going to be x, and then it's a plus or a minus. Does it help if I do that? Plus or minus. Maybe I'll just write it as plus or minus like this, like I usually do. So whatever that sign is, in this case we have a plus, and it's what b is, and so, because c is always going to be positive because we squared something, so I would have x plus, and then the other term in my binomial is just going to be b divided by 2, or if you'd like, think of it as the square root of c. I kind of like thinking of it as b divided by 2 because it's this thing here that I just squared. That's what it's going to be. All right, so I have x plus 8 divided by 2, so it's going to be 4. There's 2 of them. I can write x plus 4 times x plus 4, or I can remember that x plus 4 times x plus 4 is the same thing as x plus 4 squared equals 19, and now all I have to do is take a square root of both sides. Don't forget, plus or minus. So square and square root cancel. X plus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 19. That's a prime number. You can't do anything with that. So our last step is to subtract 4 from both sides. X is equal to negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 19. And there, we're done. All right, so really only takes 5 steps. Solve for x. The one step in there where I wrote 4 squared, that one there, that's kind of an optional step. All right, that's only if you have a more complicated thing to square and you feel like writing it down first. I'm not going to do that on the next one. And I'm not going to use blue because I've got an awful lot of blue here on the screen. All right, so again, our first step is to divide all our terms by A. right? If a is not 1, but a is 1. So we're done with step 1. So actually, there wasn't 5 steps, there was 4 steps because we didn't do step 1. Step 2, move the constant term. So we're going to add 4 to both sides. So we have x squared minus 10x is equal to 4. Right? And then we're going to add b divided by 2 squared. So in this case, b is negative 10. So negative 10 divided by 2 squared. You got to do it to both sides. Negative 10 divided by 2 squared. X squared, oops, what happened to my x? Minus 10x plus negative 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 squared is 25. So we have 4 plus 25. This is also going to be one that isn't going to simplify much at all. We can factor x squared minus 10x plus 25. It's going to be x. This time it's minus because the 10x is negative. And half of 10, or the square root of 25, is 5. And it's x minus 5 times x minus 5, or x minus 5 squared, equals 29. Take square root of both sides. X minus 5 squared equals, don't forget plus or minus, square root of 29. Square and square root cancel, so we have x minus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 29. And all we have to do is add 5 to both sides, because just like 19, 29 is prime. X equals 5 plus or minus the square root of 29. These were 2 really easy completing the squares. It's a good thing I did a whole 2 lessons on completing the square with problems that were more complicated than these ones, because these ones are really easy. However, these are just the ones I would like to do completing the square with, because it's really easy, right? All right, our last method, quadratic formula, and this one is in your notes. Just like factor by grouping, your equation has to be in standard form, right? So, that's such a straight line, such a straight line. Right, so our first step is going to be put equation in standard form. Looks a little bit like standard form, but there we go. All right, so that means let's move everything to the left side. We could move it to the right, but that would be silly because then our x squared would be negative, and we don't want a negative x squared. So we're going to move everything to the left. So we're going to subtract a 3x squared. We're going to add a 5x. We're going to subtract a 9, because that's what's on the left side, or the right side. We're going to subtract a 3x squared. We're going to add a 5x. We're going to subtract a 9. All right, so 7x squared minus 3x squared, that's 4x squared. 8x plus 5x is 13x. And 5 minus 9 is negative 4. On the other side, it would be equal to 0, right? Because those are all opposites of one another. All right, so now just as a reminder, I won't write quadratic formula because it's right up there. All right, so let's identify A, B, and C. A is equal to 4, B is equal to 13, and C is equal to negative 4. All right, so we have x is equal to negative b, so that's going to be a negative 13, plus or minus square root. We've got 13 squared minus 4 times 4 times negative 4, and that's all divided by 2 times 4. X is equal to negative 13 plus or minus square root. 13 squared is 169. 2 negatives, all right? Make sure you check. You got 1 negative or 2, you got 2, so it's a plus. If you had 3 negatives, it'd still be a minus. So we've got 4 times 4 times 4, which is going to be 64. That's like 4 cubed. It's not like 4 cubed, it is 4 cubed. And then 2 times 4 is 8. All right? And so now let's simplify in the radical. Negative 13 plus or minus 169 plus 64 is going to be 233. Yes. Right? Yeah, because that'd be 12, right? But we have to carry 1 over from the 4 plus 9. Yeah, so that'd be a 13, and then we'd have 2. Yep, I feel satisfied that that's correct. And divided by 8. This one I think is going to be a really easy problem. I wish I had a harder problem on here. Why did I choose such an easy one? Because the big problem that students have with quadratic formula is the simplifying. And I'm pretty sure 233 is a prime number. If you find I'm wrong, let me know. But it's not divisible by 3, nothing even, not 5, not, how about 7? No, not 7. Not 11. How about 13? That would go in once, and then I'd have 10. 13 going to 103? No. So that's it. Yeah, I highly doubt that that's not a prime number. So let's go over, since I think we probably have some space because there's nothing to simplify here, simplifying with quadratic formulas, because it's not always going to be so easy as the one I chose. All right, and you want to make sure that if you're going to use this method, you simplify correctly. I'll just put QF for quadratic formula. All right, so for instance, if I have x is equal to, let's put the title here. So number one thing is reduce when possible. So I'm not going to change this sentence again. You can put that in your notes. All right. So for instance, if I have, for example, if I have x equals, let's have 6 plus or minus the square root of, make sure I got something I can simplify, but not a perfect square. How about 1200 divided by 4, right? All right, so first of all, we have to simplify the radical. All right, so that's going to be 6 plus or minus, all right, so 1200, I'll go over here because if there's a 1, there's going to be a 2, right? So that's evenly divisible by, we can do 12 and 100. That would probably be the best thing. And then this would be 4 and 3, so 2 and 2. So, and 100 is 10 times 10. No reason to break up the 10, because 110 would come out, 110 would go away. 12 would come out, 12 would go away. So that would be 20. 20 square roots of 3. And then divided by 4. All right, so notice 20 is divisible by 4. Right? But 6 is not. However, they're all divisible by 3. Right? So remember, you have to reduce all 3 terms. Right? Sorry. This is term number 1. This is term number 2. This is term number 3. But you cannot reduce within the radical. All right? So I'm going to point here with an arrow. There's not that much space. With an arrow. Can't reduce a radical with an integer. Right? Something that's not in the radical. Okay, so you can't reduce those. It has to be the coefficient in front. All right, so in this case, they're all divisible by 2. Right? So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 20 divided by 2 is 10. And so I'm going to move him out of the way so that I have, because I have a 2 here. Ooh, look at all the boxes. Oh, that's not what I want to do. I hate when that happens. No. All right, so now I'm entertaining you. What the heck? All right, here. Let's do this and undo the rotating. Yeah, that doesn't look great. How about it again? There we go. And now, can I just move it up? Just a teensy bit. There, perfect. All right, so here, this is going to be x equals 3 plus or minus 10 square roots of 3 divided by 2. Make sure you reduce to simplest forms. All right, and then number 2 is to combine values when possible. If you ran out of space on this, because I didn't want you to write this down, then just add a sticky note. Or the back page. Back page has tons of space. Not tons, but some. All right, so we want to combine values when possible. So for instance, if I have x equals 7 plus or minus 4 divided by, actually, that's okay, but I want something that reduces maybe. 8 plus or minus 6 divided by 3. Well, that's not going to reduce. 7. 7. Let's make it 7. Then one of them will reduce. Okay? That might be. So maybe that's what you get for when you're solving a quadratic formula. If you leave it as x plus or minus 6 divided by 7, I will cry. You need to make that x is equal to 8 plus 6 divided by 7, and x is equal to 8 minus 6 divided by 7. Split that up. All right? So that's right. I'm going to write that down. So you're going to split the fraction, right, with the plus and the minus. And now all I got to do is put the answer. I'm going to extend the page. Ooh, look how much space I got. But you wish you could do that. X is equal to 14 divided by 7. X is equal to 2 7s. And of course, 14 divided by 7 is x equals 2. All right, so that is your answer. Make sure you know how to simplify in these two cases. These are the mistakes I see students make. Not reducing when possible or reducing incorrectly. Not combining values when possible. Nobody really combines those incorrectly. They just don't do it. All right, so make sure you have those. So add this to your notes. If you didn't have space, on the notes, then, just put a little sticky note. Add a piece of paper, whatever. Put it on the back. Anything is good. And I think that's the last one I'm going to put on this tape, yes. So in the next tape, we're going to look at the discriminant. Because we want to choose the best method when we're solving an equation. We want to know, should I try to factor? Is it not factorable? And maybe I should do completing the square or quadratic formula? Which method should I use? All right, so stay tuned in the next podcast, and we're going to talk about the discriminant and the different types of solutions we might have when solving a quadratic equation. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.